We're at the tail end of section 1 of the course. And as we discussed last time, the Modeh Ani in the morning is rooted in the Kriyat Shema Shalamita from the previous night, the recitation of the Shema from the previous night. The recitation of the Shema in itself, aside from the Shema, contains verses of Tanakh, as well as passages from the Tehillim, as well as whole entire chapters of Tehillim. But being that, as we discussed in the previous class, each individual day is considered to be a lifetime. When we wake up in the morning, it's considered that we are born. When we go to sleep at night, when we retire at night, being that the neshama leaves our body, is considered that we passed on. And just like prior, God forbid, though we shouldn't have to ever encounter this, but prior to a person's passing, they need to recite the vidui, they need to recite confession. Because if a person did not regret, did not confess, then, even if a person led a wicked life, and the Rabbi brings this in a very long letter about who is going to rise when Mashiach comes, our sages teach us that even if a person led a completely wicked life, but the very last moment had a change of heart and confessed, then they will have a share in the world to come. Even if they didn't do this formally or verbally, but even in their hearts they wish that things would have been different, that suffices. But nevertheless, the standard is to recite confession before passing away, the same type of confession that we recite on Erev Yom Kippurim, as well as during the Amidah and Musaf on Yom Kippurim, the long confession.
So someone who's sick or knows that maybe there are times when they should just have it, quote, like by their bedside?
There were times I was called to do this with certain people, and it's not an easy, especially if they're conscious and they're aware of what's happening.
In the hospital or not?
In a hospital, yeah. In hospitals. Or in senior citizen places.
Or someone asked me.
Either their children ask me, or... It's not a simple situation at all. Nevertheless, being that each night when we retire, our souls depart our bodies, we leave the world, as it were, with the Kriyat Shema Shalamita, with the recitation of the Shema in the nighttime, when confessing. And we make a short confession. Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazanu, Dibonidofi, we're guilty, we've committed treason, we robbed, and so on and so forth.
Forgive me, when you say Shema, when do you say those things?
So it's actually on page 141. It begins on 141. The Kriyat Shema in the nighttime begins on 141 and concludes on page 148.
So it's not just Shema and V'ahavta,
no.
It's a whole prayer.
Right. It's a whole entire structured prayer. There used to be a time where it was very common, until recently in history, that is, where people would recite what's called Tikkun Chatzot, the correction of midnight. And it's passages from the Zohar, from different places in the Torah, mourning the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, as everyone, and not just on the general Beit HaMikdash, but each one of us is a walking tabernacle of Hashem. And when one realizes that their service is not illuminescent as it should be, that should cause them to look within themselves. How is it possible that I'm not where I'm supposed to be? We spoke about this last time as well, that the time before going to sleep has a tremendous influence over our consciousness, because the very last thought we have before sleeping is the longest thought we're going to have throughout the day, because that thought not only remains in our consciousness, it penetrates deep into our subconscious, and so our mind ends up ruminating over it throughout the entire night. And therefore, as we said before, the Modeh Ani in the morning is rooted in the Kriyat Shema, the recitation of the Shema from the night before. And for this reason, we say the confession as well as we see at page 141, it begins, Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or vexed me, sinned against me, either physically or financially, against my honor, or anything else that is mine, whether accidentally or intentionally, inadvertently or deliberately, by speech, by deed, in this incarnation or in another. Any Jew may, and for any Jew, may no man be punished on my account. May be your will, Hashem, etc. That I shall sin no more, nor repeat my sins. Neither shall I again anger you, nor I do what is wrong in your eyes. And the sins that I committed, erase it in your abundant mercies, but not through suffering or severe illnesses. May the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, Hashem, the strength and my Redeemer. So, and this is the opening to the Kriyat Shema in the nighttime. And with this, we begin our formal accounting of ourselves, of our day. First and foremost, the first accounting that we have to make is to forgive anyone who has hurt us, and in any level.
Every day.
Every night. Because, parenthetically, just like a neshama cannot leave this world when the body passes on, lo aleinu, if it angered someone or it's upset at someone, that in itself holds the neshama like an anvil, and it can't leave this world. And incidentally, not only the soul that did not forgive or has hurt someone cannot leave, but the one who hasn't been forgiven, or the one the person is angry on, their neshama can't leave this world either. And therefore, before passing away, people make it a point to forgive everyone. Because as we know, in order to transition to something completely new, you must completely let go of what was old. And so long as you're holding on to that which was old, you can't move forward.
Some people are upset because they forgive, but the other person didn't forgive them.
Well, you have to, this is why when the halacha is, if somebody hurt you, if somebody wronged you, even accidentally, the halacha is, you're not allowed to hold it in your heart.
You forgive that person.
You're not to hold it into your heart. You have to sit with them and you have to speak to them, either directly or through a proxy. As the halacha says, that even if you have to apologize 1,000 times, even 1,000 times. Standard is 3 times. But as we learned in the Art of Forgiveness class, it's not 3 because I'm sorry. But rather, each time you come with a different approach, different words, perhaps a present, perhaps something else, but in order to be able to coax the person into forgiving you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Let's say someone wrongs you in your family and you decide that I'm going to forgive them and send them love, but I want to keep it from a distance.
That's fine. Okay. We learned this in the Art of
So
Forgiveness.
that's not considered like holding a
No.
grudge or anything?
Okay. The first, we spoke in the Art of Forgiveness of the 3 tiers to forgiving. The basic one is, I need to forgive so I can move forward. Mm-hmm. In other words, I'm not justifying that what so-and-so did to me was right, nor am I giving it a pass, but I need to move forward. And so long as I'm holding on, I cannot move forward. And this applies in so many different psychological levels, and how much more so spiritual levels, that people get trapped in a certain stage of their life because they did not let go. In this tier, this basic tier of forgiveness, one does not have to rekindle the relationship with the person who hurt them. It's just an admission that I need to move forward and I'm letting go. The rest is between them and God. Second stage is I'm not upset, and if they come to me and say hello and how you doing, I don't mind saying Alachaim, sitting, how you doing, chitty chatty a little bit, And the third is to get to a whole different level of the relationship where the pain never went to, and this is the ultimate level of forgiveness. As we spoke about many times in classes, our Torah tells us that every descent, whether in one's spiritual service or between people, any descent that occurs is an actual opportunity to come even higher. All right.
Sorry, I didn't get that part, that if you don't forgive, your neshama doesn't...
You can't leave. Can't leave.
Me, myself can't leave.
Yeah.
The one that don't forgive.
Yeah.
Not the neshama.
Yeah, we know that even in, and I've seen this, and I've experienced this with people. When I've seen this several letters from the Rebbe, where a couple was married for several years, and although biologically they were completely healthy, they couldn't have children. And when writing to the Rebbe responded to make sure you didn't hurt anyone with your engagement. Which means, and what was it referring to? In one of those times, and actually it's on my encounter. You could see the video to the couple this happened with. The person was previously engaged to someone, and they broke it off. But they broke it off, and they left pain. And that person never released that. The person who was hurt never was released, and they never apologized. So the Rebbe advised the party involved through a proxy, not directly, through a proxy, to reach out to the former fiance and apologize. I've seen this one on eyes. I had a couple who came to me. I brought to the Ohel and they opened up. And why did they go? And I asked them this question, and they brainstormed a little bit. And yeah, they came to realization that she hurt her previous fiance, and because of this, her mazal was stuck. She needed to send an apology, which she did through his brother-in-law, through her fiance's brother.
What if you ask for forgiveness and forgive the situation and forgive the person and yourself from a distant, like telepath? I know I sound crazy, but like you send
no
to them.
No. This is not by osmosis. So let me explain you what's happening. Every single, we have this for bringing on Shabbos. Every thought, how much more so every word, and how much more so every action that we do creates an angel. An angel, yes. The intention behind the behavior or the words creates the soul of the angel. And the behavior in itself creates the form of the angel, the body of the angel. And this angel depends on if it was created by something positive or lahavdil, something negative. Once this angel is there, it leeches on. It doesn't stop. Because you've created it and you are now its energy source. If you create a positive angel, this angel will help and promote you. As we say in davening, Ki malachav yitzavelach lishmocha b'chol derechecha. Hashem will station angels along your path, etc. In order to guard you, etc. In other words, that when you create a positive angel, anytime there's a chance to help you, to guard you, to shield you from anything that could have happened, it will intercede on your behalf. It will protect you. It will, if there's a chance to advance in something positive, it will push you to go into something positive. Opposite is true, something negative. When there's a negative angel that's created, it leeches on, because the person effectively becomes its life source, its battery. and it does not stop leaching. And then when it doesn't stop leaching, what it means is anytime something negative could happen, it will drive that negativity. Anytime anger could happen, it will spark things up. Anytime an accident could happen, it will trip the person. And so in order to stop this angel, there are two things that has to happen. Number one, this is called vidui. This is why we say the vidui. This is why we say the confession. Confession. Ashamnu, Baganu, Gazanu, Dibonidofi. We say this 3 times a day. Once in Shacharit, once in Mincha, once in the evening. Each time we have to ascend higher. And because each stage of the day we're ascending higher and higher and higher. But the confession, Ashamnu, Baganu, Gazanu, Dibonidofi, is structured according to the alphabet. Because as we learned in the meditation class and in Chassidus, and we spoke about this last week, the entire world is created to alphabet. Hashem's speech, as the Alter Rebbe is explaining in these Tanya. When we create anything, it has letters in it. The Hebrew letters. And as we spoke about last time, the Hebrew letters are written in order to demonstrate the passage of the flow of energy from above to below. As we learned last week, every letter begins with a yud on the top. Every letter begins with a yud on the top and is extended with a vav, and then it just the way the energy is enters the world and the effect of the energy. When we say Hashamnu Maganu Gazalnu Dofi, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, explains that we, with a sincere confession, we remove the soul of the angel. In other words, it no longer has a life force. However, the form remains and is still there. How do we remove the form in itself? For this is tshuva. For this, as the Rambam explains, as the Shalom brings in his commentary to the Talmud, that how does a person know if they made tshuva? At what point can you say I made tshuva? Says the Rambam, when a person is brought to the same situation, but responds differently than they previously reacted. Not because of lack of interest, and not because of their inability to carry out whatever it is, simply because they realize this is not me. Yes. And when the person, so we are not allowed to bring ourselves, as we say, we say in the morning brachot, don't bring us to a test. We are not allowed to bring ourselves to a test. David HaMelech once asked, the Gemara says to Hashem, why doesn't it say Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, David? Why am I not included in that amongst the forefathers? Hashem says to David, because I tested them and they passed the test. So David says, you know what, if that's the case, Naseini Navdash, you should test me, as it says in Tehillim, test me and you'll know. Hashem then put him in front of Bathsheba. That's when he met Bathsheba on the roof, and we know the rest of the story. We're not supposed to put ourselves in tests. The test that Hashem puts us there, we're going to speak in about 2-3 weeks, is there to promote us, to get us to a whole different layer of service and consciousness that we would be able to achieve without this test. However, we're not supposed to bring ourselves to a test. So we're not allowed to go back to the same situation and says, well, this time I'll do it different just so I can show that I made tshuva. However, what does happen by divine providence, when Hashem knows what's in your heart, knows that you're able to withstand that test, He will bring you back to the same situation. Perhaps a different person, different settings, but the very same spark that needs to be dealt with. And there, when you come to that place, and you don't act, or you don't say, you don't think, that's when you uproot the actual body of the angel. Now, why am I saying this? Because before we go to sleep, we have to forgive, literally. And incidentally, we don't just forgive in this lifetime. In this, as we just said, we also forgive for someone who hurt us in a previous lifetime. Because we realize that whatever happens in this lifetime is not just a mushroom out of nowhere. And because of this, we have to go to the root. Yeah.
So then that's kind of like, I don't think I asked my questions properly, because that's what I was trying to say. If you can forgive someone in a past lifetime, that means, you said it's not by osmosis, but that person's dead, gone, and not existing. So then you can ask or forgive someone that is physically not around you or not wanting. I'm confused because you say one. I'm understanding.
They don't.
Can,
No.
but now
When the person,
person,
the mitzvah has to reach as. Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi. How are you doing? Every single second is literally a new reality. So the mitzvah has to reach as far as we can bring it. So in this lifetime, when you hurt someone or somebody hurts you, when somebody hurts you, then you have to apologize. You have to apologize. Or you have to forgive if they hurt you. However, if the person's not around,
right?
You're able to send them a letter. You're able to send them a text.
Let's say it's an ex-colleague, you never see or speak to or know they exist anymore. You can't do it, just put it out there in the universe?
No. This world is a world of action. This world is a world of action, and in this world, action sets the tone. Even more so sometimes than kavanah, than intention.
That makes sense, but
if the person passed away, the halacha is, and you bring 10 men to their grave, and you formally apologize.
And this is for every single soul, or just within the Jewish? Like, you're supposed to hunt down every single Tom, Dick, and Harry you ever met.
Obviously,
I'm just trying to understand.
look.
I'm not.
Obviously, I get it. This goes into this topic goes deep, very, very deep, on many different levels. Hashem expects us to serve Him according to our true ability. And when someone hurts us, or we hurt someone, we must try to make amends. First and foremost, try to sit down with them and speak to them and say, "Look, this is from my perspective. This is what happened, and I need to speak to you about this." Yeah.
So, I heard that you're not supposed to embarrass someone publicly nor privately, but a lot of times, let's say if someone hurt me, and if I approach them, that you kind of said this and it hurt me, I feel like it's embarrassing them a little bit. So then I just don't say anything at all.
No. This is not embarrassing. This is like going to a doctor. Yeah, you're going to be in a vulnerable position, but there's no other way to get the treatment.
But you guys.
So we're not going. The Torah doesn't Chas v'Shalom advise us to speak mean-spirited or any congruent words or sentiments. Just the opposite. You want to resolve it. So we don't have to use embarrassing words.
You just like pick and choose which situations.
It depends on how much. Hold on to this sentiment for 1 minute, because it's the whole entire reason why I brought this entire point is just to explain what comes up from. Al Kopanim, understand. Don't forget bracha. Shakol. No, take a bite. Take a bite.
I'm going to
No, take a bite. Just take a bite. Take a bite.
I'm starving.
It doesn't matter what you want.
We're learning.
Ukrainians.
There was a reason I came. There was a reason I came to this class. If nothing else, I learned this.
Baruch Hashem. All right. But There's a lot to be said about this. But before we retire, being that the neshama is about to depart, we do need to take a personal accounting and reckoning of our day and think to ourselves in thought, speech, and action, how was my day compared to the plan of action that I set into my intention last night before going to sleep? As we spoke about in our first class, the thought, one of the leading thoughts of Kriyat Shema, the entire, including the confession, including forgiving in this lifetime, the previous lifetime, is Morgen wird sein gor anders. Tomorrow is going to be completely different. No matter what was today, tomorrow is going to be completely different. And for this to happen, if it's going to be completely different, then I have to let go of the incongruencies of today. For this reason, a person must take personal stock, conduct a personal reckoning without excuses, without blaming or shaming, even yourself. Just ask yourself, how do I improve tomorrow? Very simple. You don't want to go to sleep with a feeling that you are a broken human being. And as in we do recite chapter 51 of Tehillim, where David HaMelech says, Lev nishbar v'nidkeh, that Hashem desires a broken heart, a lowly heart. We're not talking about feeling I'm nobody and nothing. But we learned last year in the Farbrengen by Yud Beit Tammuz, by the Ohel, and this year we're doing it again in Meretz Hashem, that the Mendel of Kotzker Rebbe taught that there's nothing more complete than a broken heart. And that is, like we were Farbrengen, Lahavdil, this last Shabbat, where Leonard Cohen, in his last album, says, forget your perfect offerings. Everything has a crack, and that crack is where the light enters. The broken heart that Mendel of Kotzk teaches us, there's nothing more whole than a broken heart, is not to feel that I am broken. Heaven forfend, a person should never think that way. This is a Yetzer Hara. Because a Yetzer, as we spoke about in the warrior to warrior class, the Hasidic adage is that the Yetzer Hara doesn't care about the sin in itself. The Yetzer Hara cares about the toxic emotions that seep in as a result of the sin. Because then when the person feels, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, I'm a this, I'm a that, then he is, now you could manipulate him to do anything. Who gets into gangs? Who goes into stupid behaviors? It's people who feel downtrodden and broken. One has to know how good they are. And if they're good, then there's a Yiddish phrase, he's passt nicht. It just doesn't fit. If I'm really good, then this is not me. This is not the way I should be. I could do better than that. I could think better. I could speak better. Not just like we spoke about the difference between a nazir and a neder. Where a neder, a person has like an oath. A person makes an oath that a person says, I swear. This is what he says, that I'm not going to have any more cake. Like he knows he has proclivities to cake, and he knows if he's going to come to the cake, he can't. So he makes an oath, and as we discussed in the Tanya class, an oath taps into the essence of the neshama, which is irrational, emotional, and it's not prone to change. And that oath empowers a person not to come close to the cake. But that's because you realize they have proclivities. There's a higher level, which is a nazir, a Nazarite, which is a person realizes, I want holiness. I want more. And because I want more, because I know I can achieve more, I take upon myself an oath to conduct myself as a Nazir in order to achieve holiness. And so each and every one of us we could achieve this in our own life. And what's the psychological difference? I am broken, and therefore I have to swear off cake, whatever that proverbial cake looks like. Versus, I am good, and this cake does not define me. It's when you reach deep inside. That's a broken heart that Mendel of course discusses. The broken heart is that I have so much to achieve, so much to accomplish in my life. I can't even understand how truthfully good I am. But when a person feels, no, I'm good. Why should I change? In American, they have the most broken saying. If it ain't broken, don't try to fix it. In other words, leave good to be good. But if good is good, gooder is gooder, right?
Are Jews allowed to make an oath?
No, not today.
So when we want to work on something, what could we tell ourselves? Like
You tell yourself, I'm the daughter of the king. If lahavdil, a mortal king and queen, who are symbolic kings and queens in England, and you see how they're dressed and their children dress and how they act in public and so on and so forth, and this is just mere flesh and blood. We are the children of the King of all kings, and he trusts in us so much. And he entrusts in our mission so much as he's willing to take the greatest investment and the biggest risk to send our souls away from his splendor, his glory, into a world that the Torah itself calls a world of deceit, of hindrances and obstacles. And Hashem believes in us so much, as we spoke about last week in the Mode'ani, Rabbi Munatecha, the last two words, Hashem, your faithfulness in me is so great. That's why you woke me up today. You believe in my day. You believe in what I'm going to be able to achieve. And when we understand that a king of all kings, and like we spoke about last week, if the Rebbe comes up to you and says, look, I have a mission for you, and only you can perform this. And you say, me? Who am I? What do I know? You know, there is parenthetically to this, there was a back in the early days of the Rebbe's leadership, the Rebbe would personally send out shluchim, each one according to their designation. Certain parents who came from Russia, from Ukraine, from former war-torn Europe, and settled in Crown Heights, for the first time experienced Yiddishkeit and vibrancy. You have a Rebbe, you have everything. And to be told that their kids are not going so completely, and they're never coming back. They're not coming. It's not like you go for a week. You're just going, and that's it. So some of the parents got a sort of, and they wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, you know what, until now, I was sending each soul to where they needed to go, from above to below. But now that there's interference with that, now it's going to have to come from below to above. Now it's going to have to be a process. Anyway, one of these times when the Rebbe actually sent a shliach out, the way it was there was a kollel, a men's study hall, a married man's study hall behind 770. They're actually breaking it down so they can make a whole new thing, but the Rebbe would send his personal secretary, Rabbi Mordechai Isaac Chodakov, and he would send him to the kollel and says, the Rebbe is summoning you, he has a shlichut for you. Once Rabbi Chodakov came to the kollel and got the attention of one of the young men, and says, the Rebbe is sending you out to shlichut. And what did the man say? I says, me? I'm not an orator. I don't know how to teach. I don't know how to conduct the services or create schools. Look, there are people around me who are qualified to do this. I don't know anything.
But we're not supposed to put ourselves down.
It's not that he was being. Listen, you're taking the Rebbe's shlichus. This is a very serious thing. So he was being honest. He was just being honest. Rabbi Chodakov says, okay, I'll go to report back to the Rebbe. A little bit later, the Rabbi Chodakov comes and says to him, the Rebbe says, you're perfect. Because you are not convinced of one talent or another, because you are like an open field and a fertile ground, you will be able to achieve all of it. Just the thing, when a person is not convinced, I could do this, but I'm ready for everything, then Hashem gives you it allows you to grow exponentially. The Baal Shem Tov says that the Jewish people in the Torah were called Eretz Chafetz, a land of treasure, of great minerals and stones and precious stones and so on and so forth. Within each and every one of us, we have infinite treasure troves that we can't even imagine. Any of you who are working on making tshuva know one thing, that before the tshuva is like, me, Shabbos, kosher, me influencing other, me giving classes, me doing this. Come on, that's not me. The rabbis, in their mother. How is it possible one day it's like, yeah, of course. What else should I be doing? This is all I'm here for. You don't have to quit your job, just the opposite. I have an uncle just turned 80. His name is Mendy Krichevsky. All of his children are shluchim all around the world. He is an electrical engineer, and he received some of the greatest awards from Israel. And he works in the civil service, but he brings for the Women's Day. He brings cakes and cookies for the women. It's like this, and he shares Torah with people, and he explains them about holidays. That's the shlichut. Hashem doesn't make mistakes. Each and every one of us, wherever He puts us, that's exactly where we need to be effective. The Baal Shem Tov says that the neshama comes into this world, and in order to elevate the world, how do you elevate the world? You walk, you say a pasuk of Torah, you say a bracha in a certain place, you greet a person, you help a person, you elevate the physical. For this you were sent. It's brought down in a Sefer Hasidim, a book that's called the Book of the Pious. It was written about 1,000 years ago. That why does Hashem could technically find parnasah for each person literally in front of their house? Why do certain people have to go down the block? Some people have to go down the street. Some people have to go down into the city. Some people have to travel internationally.
Because they're needed there.
Because there's a spark that you need to elevate. You need to elevate. In order to, that's why you're sent there.
It's right in front of you.
Wherever you are, that's your service. You're meant to serve exactly there. So it's not that the shlichut, that I could quit my job, but just the opposite. Like we spoke about Velvin Green several times, Professor Velvin Green from NASA. The Rebbe says, don't quit NASA. Whatever you're working in NASA, as far as the project for NASA, see how it correlates to serving God, and so on and so forth.
So basically, everything you're doing, see how it has the purpose of serving.
Yes,
in the moment.
because wherever you are, there's service there. Wherever you are, there's service.
Wherever you are, that's where you have to be.
Exactly.
What if you feel like you agree with that, but you feel like the life is monotonous? It's like it's just running in place in that situation, and it hasn't progressed from that situation.
Then spice it up. Make it more vivacious. Make it more lively. It doesn't have to be. That's a you thing. That's each and every one of us has within that setting in itself.
Something new, maybe.
Within that setting in itself. How to, Mendos once in a Farbrengen says that when he was in the gulags, once he saw a man in the middle of the night. Every single night he would come out in the middle of the night. He would leave the barracks and he starts like pointing and like this, like this, like this, like this. It's like one day Remender says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'll tell you the truth. I was a commander of a unit, and I'm a political prisoner, and I will lose my mind here." And Siberia were sent for people. Most people didn't come out normal from there, for many different reasons. But he says, I need to keep my sanity. So each night he would go in his mind, conduct a unit. Conduct a unit. In other words, wherever you are, you're meant to serve. Whatever that service is, however you could achieve that service. All right, let's go back, because the whole of this was brought to for one particular point. Okay, so once one of my colleagues related that when Reb Mendel was sent to be the mentor in Kfar Chabad, his wife and family already lived in England, and they weren't about to leave England. So Reb Mendel was stationed in Kfar Chabad. That was his station now. There is halacha that says that a man technically should not sleep in by himself in a house in a dark place if he's married.
Ever.
Yeah. So that is, some people are really strict. Reb Mendel was really strict with that. And so every night he would sleep in his house and two bacharim would accompany him. They would sleep and in the living room. Anyway, so once, upon going to sleep, the bachar, he sat with them, he forbang with them a little bit, and then he says, "Okay, I'm going to say Kriyat Shema," because Reb Mendel never said I'm going to sleep. Never said I'm going to say Kriyat Shema. Or Reb David used to say, I'm going to go grab a dream for a second, but never go to. I'm not going to sleep.
I like that. I love that.
Anyway.
But why not say I'm going to sleep? What's the
What do you mean I'm going to sleep? You know, there's like this. Oh, who in their right mind goes to sleep? You have to go to sleep as part of your service, yes. But there was a chassid. The previous Rebbe called him a Beinoni. His name was Itzhak Damasmi, Yitzchak Horowitz, the Diligent. And he came to America with the previous Rebbe in 1930, and then came back to Europe, and he was burnt alive by the Nazis in a shul. Anyway, why did he? One of the reasons why he didn't want to stay in America is like these people. I've never seen anything like this. They eat meat every single night, and they go to sleep in a pajama. What kind of a behavior is this? It's a wild behavior. A person actually going to go to sleep in a pajama so they can get comfortable with it. This is a whole different level of service. This is a whole different. Pajamas is not an issue, but there's a time where, like, listen, so you want to be comfortable. If sleep is one, we have tzitzit. Of course, we wear tzitzit.
In bed too.
Of course.
A man wears tzitzit.
Don't put it on the floor.
Oh. Okay, sorry. We do that all the time.
Put it. No, you put.
We don't like to put empty.
No. Give it. Go like this. That's it.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay.
Weird.
I know, right? Us Jews. No. Yeah, we like. Listen, it is what it is. Anyway, so.
Okay, mental note. I need to know later why.
Me too.
So Reb Mendel says, okay, I'm going to say Kriyat Shema. And afterwards, the Bachram went to sleep, and then it's sometime in the night, my colleague related it for Brengen, he starts hearing weeping. He hears weeping, and he hears weeping. And it's coming from Reb Mendel's bedroom. And back in the day, you remember the old locks? It's not like today's lock, but it was like the old key. Yeah, so you could peer through the. So the Bachar looked through the keyhole and sees Reb Mendel. He's saying Kriyat Shema. He's in the middle of Kriyat Shema. And what is he weeping? He started the first time, and eat, Master of the world, Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who and he would stop. He starts crying. And he starts singing, Master of the universe, I hereby forgive, and he starts again crying for every single time, 20 minutes. The Bach is looking, he's confused. This is not confession. This is not this or not that. But he's perplexed. What is Reb Mendel crying over here? Is the time you're forgiving people. You should be happy for that. Anyway, this went on for a few hours, and the Bach went back to sleep. The olden days, the old Hasidim, their Kriyat Shema could last 4 or 5 hours at a time. And yeah, they wouldn't go to sleep. They would go to sleep for an hour, 2 hours, and then wake up. They would wake up and they would immediately start service. Anyway, no snooze button. Why would someone sleep is 1/60th of death? Sleep is 1/60th of death. Who wants more death? Think about it.
Yeah, but it's different.
We don't think that way.
So sleeping is a waste of time.
No. We learn in the meditation. Sleeping is part of our service. The soul ascends to Shamayim and is reoriented and replenished with the energy because Hashem gives you enough energy for the next day, for whatever you have to deal with. It's very important. But we have to prepare our bodies and our souls for this reorientation, replenishing. It's not just by the way. So, Anyway, so the Bacher was perplexed though. Why is he crying? Why is he crying? The next day, he asked Rebbe, why does one cry in the middle of when saying Hareini mochel l'chol yishichis? Rebbe says, and who says you have to do that? So he didn't want to say, I was listening to you last night, so he left it. What happens, a few weeks later, Shavuot, Rebbe was forbidden, and he took a lot of l'chaim. At this point, the Bacher felt now is a good opportunity to ask Rebbe. So Rebbe says, because when a person thinks, I am forgiven, who am I that I have to at all hold on to any pain or any anger or who am I? If Hashem decided this is what I need to go through, what kind of a Baal Gaiva am I? What kind of an egocentric person am I that I have to hold on and be upset with someone and be angry at someone that they took this from me or took this from me? It's all hashgacha pratit. If I could even for a split second be upset that someone did this or this to me, that means that I hold of me. And if I still retain that sense of ego, this is something to cry about. Because the tears wash away the ego. So this in itself, why we say it, because the modeh ani, as we said last week, the modeh ani, I acknowledge I. Modeh is not ani modeh, because in Hebrew you could just say ani modeh, I'm thankful. But as we said last week, modeh ani, acknowledge, thankful I am. You first and foremost acknowledge the real you. That you are awake. The true you is awake. And you have to acknowledge, because what woke you up in the morning was your body, your alarm, and everything else. So first and foremost, you are convinced that the body consciousness, that the world is now waking you up and so on and so forth. But you acknowledge that no. You were drawn into this world in order to perform the mission because Hashem believes in me. Make sense?
Yes.
Can you just repeat? So why was he crying if he has no ego? He's saying, who am I to forgive?
Because when a person starts thinking that I have to forgive someone,
Right.
who am I that I should be upset altogether?
So why was he crying?
Because when you're sensitive, when you're really sensitive about your service, not like emotionally sensitive, like this, but really sensitive, understanding, then you understand how each frame of life is absolutely meaningful and purposeful and is intertwined to past, present, and future. And for me to be occupied for a split second with being upset or this or that, then this is the opposite of why I'm here.
So were his tears of happy tears?
No, it's just the opposite. Is how could I even think to myself that I need to, even though it's inscribed in the prayer book, but how could I even think along these ways? Remember what's related. There was a chassid. His name was Avram Homeler. Avram from the town of Homel. In 1926, the previous Rebbe had a very, very sharp upbringing, openly speaking about the Amalek of the generation which was communism. And the previous Rebbe spoke about it very strongly. Cried a lot. So it's a whole entire upbringing. After the upbringing, a few of the Avram Homeler approached the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, and asked him, what do I practically need to do? How do I bring this upbringing to fruition? The Rebbe then points to his Yechidus room, to his private audience room. He says, come. When Rebbe Avram entered the previous Rebbe's Yechidus, the previous Rebbe instructed him to fast 3 days consecutively. And after the third day of fasting, to go to the shul, clap on the bima, on the Torah stand table, and to say whatever comes from your heart. After fasting a day or so, 2 days, all your filters are gone. Yeah. So you're not afraid to say whatever you think. He comes to the bima the third day after fasting, claps, and he opens up to the point that the custodian, the gabbai, got scared. And he actually took him off. He says, you can't, because it was known that the communists infiltrated even the Hasidim. And they acted, and but they were really gathering information, who, where, what, who, so on and so forth. But what did Reb Avram say? He says, Yidden, it's no excuse, but it is somewhat logical that you are working on Shabbat. There's no food, there's no parnassah, you're starving. It's no excuse. But there's some rationale to it. Skewered, but there's the rationale. But how dare you, he says, send your kids to public schools? The shkola. We're seeing that this public school today is taking on the model of the communism, turning kids against who they are and their parents and so on and so forth. But what did he say? He says, don't you understand? You're sending them to their spiritual death. When you pass away, there will be no one to say Kaddish for you. They won't care. It won't matter to them. How dare you do this? The gabbai got very scared. He pulled him off. But several young men, Reb Mendel, and I think even my Zaidi, Rabbi Osher, because they were in the same, Reb Mendel and my Zaidi, Osher Kravitsky, were in the same yeshiva, because what happens next? They come to him, to Rebbe Avram, and says, what do we do? And the previous Rebbe then instructed Rebbe Avram to go and open up a branch of Tom Chitmim Yeshiva in Kremenchuk, in Ukraine. Kremenchuk was a town in Ukraine where all the great minds, the most deepest Hasidic minds came. And so they opened up a yeshiva over there. Reb Mendel, my Zaidi was there, a whole bunch of Hasidim were there. Reb Mendel, there was no dormitory at that point, so every single student was placed in someone's house, and Reb Mendel stayed in Reb Avram Homeler's house, apartment, whatever it is. And once he comes in the middle of the night, and Reb Mendel, as a bacher, is listening, and he hears Reb Avram cry. Now, just a background: Reb Avram was not the most astute in their mind intellectually. But when he gave a Tanya class, the entire town, even non-Hasidim, would come because of the way he explained it. He was very sincere in his approach to life, to service, to Hasidus. But Reb Mendel now hears him cry in the Kriyat Shema of the nighttime. And he cries, especially when he was saying the Tachanun, the confession part. Over and over, crying. Once Reb Mendel says, Reb Avram, what sins could you be crying about? what do you have to confess exactly? Your entire day, from morning to night and night and morning, especially back in those days where night and morning were the same because you had to operate around the KGBs who was always watching you. His entire day was Tom Chetmim in the yeshiva, collecting money for the yeshiva or teaching. There was no free time for him. So he says to Rav Avram, what can you possibly be crying for? Rav Avram says to him, yeah, we do. Shmektach, but it stinks. What does it mean? Yeah, we're doing, but it stinks of ego. In other words, yeah, I'm doing, but I'm not sure my motivation. That this is sincerity in service. I could guarantee you Avram didn't have an ego, or an ego that we recognize as an ego in this day and age. Certainly not. Anything on that, anything that remotely approaches that. But the more refined, the more you start noticing not just blacks and whites, a shade of grays. and it bothers you. Because the black and whites emanate ultimately from the shade of grace. Because if you allow this, then you could allow that. If you could allow this, you allow this. And eventually. So the Hasidim were very sensitive to that. So the Modeh Ani in the morning is rooted in the Kriyat Shema the Mapil from the night before, because the night before we examine and we assess on a holistic level, again, without bashing or shaming, not yourself or anybody else, Rahman Islam. But how could it be better tomorrow? How could my thought, my speech, and my action be better tomorrow? And what do? You have to just think about your entire day, your interactions that you could recall. How was my interaction with so-and-so, with my spouse, with my children, with myself, with God, with my colleagues? Did I say anything that didn't need to be said? And what really motivated me? And when I thought I was right, what really motivated me? And was it accepted correctly? And how do I go and how do I go tomorrow to make sure this doesn't happen? Be sincere about our intentions. Be sincere about our motivations. Be sincere about not living a life of excuses. Because excuses, as best as they are nothing more than excuses. They prevent us from moving forward. If I have a reason why I don't need to move forward or why I was right, why should I do anything right? And then why should I correct it? Why should I grow from this? Again, the broken American axiom, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. But this is not because I'm broken. But perhaps I could emit more light. I could absorb more light. I could express more light. What's light? Clarity. Clarity of the soul, which is clarity of God. And where do I have to bring this light? Specifically where the place there's no clarity. So, as we spoke about last week and the week before, where does our service begin? Where does our service actually begin? In the vacuums, in the darkness. Because that which is going correct, that which is going good spiritually and physical, that is from Hashem. And you have to be thankful for that. And don't take it for granted. But with the second it gets dark, that's where Hashem says, I did my part, now I want you to do yours. And I'm giving you, endowed you with the power to deal with this. And your avodah milashon ibud orot. The word avodah, service, means to tan hides. To take an animal and shecht it and remove the skin, and being that the skin is organic matter, it's organic tissues, it's going to wither right away, disintegrate. It's going to stink. Service means to take that which is prone to stink and work on it and work on it and work on it until it becomes leather. Not only is it not going to weather away, it's going to be the strongest fiber. And if you work on it even more, you take from that leather and you make a cloth tefillin, a parchment for tefillin, a parchment for the Sefer Torah, or the leather for the tefillin. In other words, you're taking something which is disgusting and dark and stinky, and you work on it until it becomes the strongest part of who you are. And certainly we know and we realize that the things that we struggle with the most in our lives, but we don't make excuses. Oh, it's not my circus, not my monkeys. I didn't ask for this. I would have done things differently, but God, you did this, and what do you want from me? And it's the opposite. The service is to take that which is and make it Baruch Hashem. But we know when we do this, we've recognized, as the Alter Rebbe brings in the Tanya, that where the rope is severed, and you have to reattach it by knotting it up, becomes effectively the strongest part of the entire rope. It's specifically the places that are hurt, where there's lack of clarity, where there's darkness, and especially if it's cyclical and repetitive in our lives, where God says, this is why I sent you here. If I wanted you to just go into light, I would have left you in heaven. But I'm bringing you specific to this place and this setting with these people because that's where you need to do. Do whatever you need to do. Conventional, but unconventional. Do whatever needs to be done, but do it. Don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up. Yeah.
Rabbi, you said last week that which is going well, Hashem is doing for you, and we should be grateful for it. But I mean, if we're davening and we're unblocking Mazel, and we're going to the Ohel and we're doing our service, isn't that also, of course Hashem's doing it, but isn't it also contingent on what we're actually putting into? So it's
Yeah, it is. Of course. That's why we have the davening. But as we spoke about in the beginning, where the Jewish people took the occupation of their forefathers davening by the sea, Hashem says, I don't want you to daven right now. This is not the place to daven. Walk. I told you, keep on going forward. Geh weiter. A Jew needs to always remember, geh weiter. Go forward. Stop. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. This is your mission. You got to keep on going at all costs, no matter what. No plan A, no plan B, just as the way you need to do it, the way it needs to be. That's called stark. Sometimes to sit and daven and say, Hashem, I'm going to say Tehillim, this is like throwing back the ball back to Hashem. Hashem gave it to you to do something about it. He says, I'm going to turn to you and I'm going to put it back in your hands. Yes, the Tehillim says in chapter 55, Hashem cast upon Hashem your burden, and He will sustain you. Yes. Means it's a shared experience. You're not alone in this. But it doesn't remove your responsibility. As the Mishnah says in chapter 2 of Pirkei Avot, the day is long, the work is arduous, the workers are lazy, the reward is great, and the balabat and the boss is pressing. But it's not incumbent upon you to complete the service, but you are not allowed to desist from it either. In other words, knowing that you have to do your part. You don't have to get it completely right or perfect. As we spoke about before, that need for perfection, that's a Yetzer Hara in itself. But what am I actually doing practically about it, to the best of what I can give right now? What is the best that I can give and actually give it? Because as we spoke about last time, in the first class, sometimes Hashem puts you in a place where you need to daven, not because that davening is meant to go through right now, just to extract that davening so you could use it later on for your children, your grandchildren, in another situation. And sometimes Hashem puts you in a situation not because you need to go through it, but rather because you're doing this, you become partners with Him, and this will translate later on to yourself, your children, and your grandchildren. Either way, Judaism requires a balance between action, first and foremost, and intention. And so before we go to sleep in the nighttime, we must create the intention, set the intention forth of how today was and how I'm going to improve on it tomorrow in thought, in speech, and action. Then we could wake up with the Modeh, the beginning of acknowledgement. We spoke about last night in the relationship class that in order to be able to have a healthy, holistic relationship, first and foremost, you have to have a relationship with yourself. And the key to every relationship with yourself, certainly with others, is empathy. Not kindness, not severity, not love, not discipline, but empathy. Not what I want, not what I like, not what I need. What does this person need? Empathy to yourself means I might identify as the animal soul. I'm aware of my needs, my physical needs, and this, but there's something deeper inside of me. I need to be empathetic to the real me. As we spoke about last night, Rabbi gives a great parable. How do you empathize to someone else? So Rabbi poured a l'chaim in a shot glass, and it was full to the brim. And the other shot glass only halfway through. Then Rabbi asked a bacher, okay, and which one is able to receive more now? And the bacher says that one that's half empty. He says, that's true. That's how you have to relate. There has to be a half of you in this relationship. In other words, not me, like an empty cup could receive everything. That's to Hashem. Over here, there has to be a me. I can't just override me and completely erase me like I don't exist, I don't matter, my feelings don't matter, my emotions. Because even if they're animal soul oriented, a person cannot erase that within themselves, because then they'll lose themselves after a while. And it could drive them insane. And I've seen this where people completely lost themselves because they decided, no, I don't have to feel, no, I don't have to go through this, no, I don't have to, it's okay that I'm going through this, it's okay that my spouse, like my children, it's totally fine. After a while, a person starts, the emptiness starts drawing other not good things. So it's half empty. There has to be the half of me, but in a relationship, there has to be the other half to give you space as well. And for this, each and every one of us has to think to herself, okay, my half of the day, how did I come off? How did I treat myself? How did I treat others? How did I think about myself? How did I speak? And so on and so forth. But then, where's your room to improve? The mode'ani, acknowledge I. Acknowledge the real you when you wake up. The first thought of your day is a run of the day. Acknowledge that the real you is here and present. Invite the real you to be present in your life. Not your animal soul, which is absolutely necessary, but that's still not the real you. You're not your body consciousness. Your body consciousness is your vehicle to express the real you. Not your past, not your traumas or anything, but if I'm going to master the day today, I can't live in the past. I can't live in what happened, or I can't live in could have, should have, would have, because that will distract me from being focused on today. And then one last anecdote from Rabbi Mendel, and then I'll take your question, and then we'll pause until next week. Once Rabbi Mendel was in the gulags with a watchmaker, and when he spoke to him, he said to him, Rabbi Mendel had the thing, the Rebbe gave him a bracha that you should be able to say the right things to the right people at the right time in the right manner. And so Rabbi Mendel had this knack of learning from everything and everyone how to serve Hashem. And his Farbrengen was laden with everything that he experienced and the way of to serve Hashem. So anyway, once he was sitting with a watchmaker in the gulags, and the watchmaker discussed with him how he repairs watches and how he has to be so concentrated, so focused, and he can't be distracted because every single moving part is so small, and there's not too much room for a margin of error here. Rabbi Mendel then surmised from that, if just fixing a simple mechanical, physical watch requires so much focus, and to be able to make sure that while the watchmaker is fixing the watch, he doesn't get distracted and needs to focus, how much more so us when we come to serve God throughout the day. Every single small moving part is irreplaceable, because whatever happens today will never again in all of history. Forget about it in all of history. What happened right now will never repeat itself in a minute from now. Because every single second is literally a new creation. And so if that's the case, my approach to the day has to be, I'm open. What does it mean I'm open? I can't live in the past, because it's going to taint my perception of the present. And no matter what was yesterday, today is going to be altogether different. What's the question?
So it's like every second, every new day is like a whole new world and reality. Why is it so difficult to give up habits?
Well, because we as Alter Rebbe explains in the Tanya, this is what we're going to be learning in this coming up Monday night's Tanya class. As you know, we possess two consciousness: a body consciousness, which is inserted first and foremost into our life, gives us life in conception. The animal soul comes first and foremost. The godly soul comes later on. And that's why the animal soul is considered an old and foolish king, because the animal soul precedes the godly soul by 13 years by a boy or 12 years by a girl. We are much more aware of our animal soul, our body consciousness, than we are of our godly soul. And as we've been speaking about in the empathy class, the animal soul, being that it's reactive, will always try to get in the first word. The first thought, the first gut feeling, the first emotions, usually is the animal soul.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's why I feel it's hard.
But it doesn't have to have the last word. you could filter that. He said, "Oh, I hear what you're saying. I get it. And let's see how we can incorporate it to what we're really going to do." Right. So the animal soul, being that it's an animal soul, because the animal soul in itself is like an animal. It's not that it's endowed in an animal. It's distinctly human. It's called the natural soul, the human soul, etc., etc. It's called the animal soul because it functions like an animal. Basic instinct, survival to survive, and that's it. Anything that threatens that survival, that's when it starts reacting. Well, as we know, animals are creatures of habit and patterns. Seasonal and geographical. They have to come over here and they have to go over here. The animal soul is muscle memory. It records in muscle memory. As I'm sure you've learned, and we've been discussing in the relationship class, that trauma is now in psychology and neurology. Now they're teaching what the Torah taught us thousands of years ago, that the trauma only is absorbed in the natural body setting, in the animal soul, the ego. The godly soul doesn't understand trauma. It doesn't relate to trauma. It's like, if this is what I went through, then this is what I needed to go through in order to serve God, in order to refine me, in order for it to meet the experience. That's why Amanda was crying. Why should I get upset with something, this or this? Like, Amanda had many reasons to be upset. After all, it was the enlightened Jews who were responsible for having all the Hasidim arrested. It was enlightened Jews who joined the KGB and created what's called the Izvexia, the Russian branch of the Communist Party, who infiltrated the Jewish life in order to give Jews over. And many Jews were murdered, and hundreds of thousands of families were discombobulated. People disappeared, never to be heard of again. They just found Rebbe Chani's grandfather just not too long ago in a mass grave, because they did keep an accounting. So Rebbe had many reasons to be upset with people, but yet how could I be upset? If I had to go through this, then I have to go through this. Either way, what psychology teaches us today is that trauma is recorded and absorbed and recorded in the body. Remember, I was just with somebody 2 weeks ago, and there's Maura, what's her name? Fasher. No, what's her name? Her name. She teaches at our school. Her name. Sola. Maura Sola. So we were speaking. Yeah. So I was speaking to her, and I was because she does healing. She does healing. So I asked her, how do you tell me about this, because I was inquiring. I heard about this, but for somebody from to be doing that, I asked her, it's like, well, for example, there are people who go through trauma, and their trauma is absorbed in their abdomen. Mm-hmm. We know that the Torah, each organ is connected to a mitzvah. Mm-hmm. And we know, I remember one of the first things my mom used to told me when she came to the Kabbalah Center, that the kaved, the word kaved, liver, is to me makpido, so it's etymologically related to the word, that when you're scrutinized, you're always angry, you always look at, so people who are angry have liver issues. Fatty liver, because this is where it's stored. This is where this trauma is stored. Right?
And the chakras that we learn about.
So this is it. But the godly soul certainly doesn't say, this is what I have to go through. Baruch Hashem, you believe in me, let's do this. But all trauma gets recorded. So so the animal soul, the body consciousness is pattern oriented. And that's why it's muscle memory. The thing is, we don't have to break every muscle memory, but those who we recognize that are getting in the way of who we are, and get in the way of our purpose and our progress in life, that we have to ask ourselves, how do I augment it? How do I work on it? What do I have to introduce? Maybe I didn't understand. I need to introduce a new knowledge. And so many times the new knowledge that I use for myself is, if it wasn't for all of this, I wouldn't know what I know today. Mm-hmm. One of the greatest understanding that I had in the beginning of this year is that everything that I know today, everything that you hear me say, I had to pay a very hefty price for. A very hefty price. One that I don't wish on anyone, ever. But it used to be a time where I used to sit and cry to God in the middle of the night and says, God, but you could have done this differently. It didn't have to go this way. It just didn't. You could have done it differently. Not that I don't believe this is God. That I don't believe that this is... No, I believe 100% God, but God, you could have done it differently. Why does it have to go... And then I realized, once God answered me, I did it exactly how you needed it. How I needed it. When I asked God, it wasn't fair. I wasn't born to a frou-frou family. My father left when I was 5 years old before I got to go to Cheder, and I got sent to public school, and I was raised with not kosher and all this stuff, and my brother Shmulik, he did get to go to yeshiva, and he's more frumer than both of us. And so I said, God, at what point did I ever have a chance? Before I was born, my mom fell down the stairs, and hence I have this thing. I almost died. Later on, this happened. I almost died. Later on, my leg was almost chopped off. Later on, my spleen was crushed. I almost died. I said, Hashem, by the time I was 11, you crushed my body so much. Then you brought my family into the mix with all this, everything that I went through. God, at what point did you ever give me a chance? Because I became Baal Tshuva, marriage, children, shlichus, nonstop. There was never a time to sit and even think to us for a second about my life, let alone where am I holding in life. Never absorbed. I knew it by heart, but it didn't pertain to me until 10 years into my tshuva.
But look at you now.
But to ask God, you never gave me a chance. When did you ever give me a chance? And I'm telling you, when you sincerely speak to God, God will answer you very, very openly, very quickly. And instantly God tells me, I did give you. That was your training. All of it. All of it. Every part of it was necessary.
Rabbi, you're reaching level after level.
I don't know about that. This I can't tell you. I could tell you that one of the biggest understanding that I had this in the beginning of the year is that yes, I paid a lot for this. But if it wasn't for all of it, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't know this. And so this is how you reintroduce to the animal soul, to let go of certain things. It's like, yes, because the animal soul will remember all the pain. But like we spoke about on Shabbat, Miriam Adahan, who was had to sneak out of Iran, and the guy who took her put a gun to her children's head, and we spoke about it, and eventually they found out right before they went to Turkey that he's Jewish, and he told them, I'm sorry I had to be so hard on you, but there's no other way to get you and your kids out of Iran, and had to be silent, and without being so hard on you guys. I'm so sorry I had to do this. But this God is saying, listen, there's no way for me to get you from point A to point B. Why would you ever want to change? Why would you ever want to grow if everything was hunky-dory? The animal soul is not the kind of creature that's everything's good, let me work on myself. It's just the opposite. When you crush us, oil comes out. I believe for truth. With this, Shavua Tov.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You said 13 and 12, does that correlate, those numbers, is just a coincidence, or it correlates to bar mitzvah?
That's exactly where the bar mitzvah
comes from.
Bar mitzvah means now you're an obligation. Mm-hmm. When you're obligation, when your mind kicks in, because until you're 12, we haven't got there yet. That's a part of Bikot HaShachar. Mm-hmm. You're more in the from 0 to 12. Mm-hmm. It says that will make mankind in our image. The word tzelem, tzadik lamed mem, the Mitzvah Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe explains, is the actual map of our life. Tzadik is 0 to 13 or 12 in girls. Mm-hmm. Lamed is 12 or 13 to 20, and mem is from 20 onwards. Why? Tzadik is 90, which is the 9 emotions, other than chokhmah, wisdom, and there are 10 inclusions. From 0 to 12, 13, we are primarily emotional. We have to cycle. That's normal for children to be emotional. And today's psychology recognizes. Parents say, why are you crying? You don't let the child develop. And then you're going to, I posted this on the parenting chat the other day, then you're going to have a man-child, and you're going to have to parent them as teenagers or even young adults, or even an adult, as you would a baby. Because that stage was never finished.
And find that like children that were not validated tend to grow up with addiction?
Yeah, because what's addiction? What's the no? I keep forward. The opposite of addiction is connection. When a person is not connected to first and foremost to themselves, and they don't, because they're not connected to themselves, because they don't know how good they are, how important they are, not because look at me, this and that. Then that will bring addiction, because then I need to constantly, like, I'm starving, so I'm not aware that I could get normal food, so I constantly snack on empty calories, on calorie rich, nutrient empty, empty calories, right? So I'll keep on putting things like, I'll get this, I'll go this, I'll fly over here, and I'll go over here, and I'll do everything because I'm not comfortable with me. So 0 to 12 or 13, that's tzaddik. Lamed is 30. Is 3 times 10. The 3 intellectual, from 12, 13 until 20, that's where intellect kicks in. That's where the bar about mitzvah. You're not responsible for a mitzvah if you are not mindful. In order to do a mitzvah, you have to have intention. You have to understand. That's where our mind starts developing. And then from 20 and onwards, that's the makifim, the encompassing powers of the soul, which is will and pleasure. From that point on, you work on what you want and your pleasure. And that's the schematics of human beings. So yeah, it is directly correlated. This Shabbat, we have a kiddush for Luba, Baruch Hashem, for her birthday. Next Shabbat, we're going to have a kiddush.
Elisa, not Luba.
Luba.
This
Luba?
Shabbat is
It was her Hebrew birthday.
Yeah, it was
okay.
okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. And then following Shabbat, we're going to have a kiddush for Eliza's birthday, which is this week. And her kiddush, it's known that when you're born, if you're a girl, for a woman, your father is responsible to make a kiddush in your honor, and it's tied into your marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but people didn't have. That's why we several times this year we had kiddushin for women who never had a kiddush, because it's intertwined with the Rebbe explains many times. The boys have brit milah, but the girls should have a kiddush. She didn't have it young. The Rebbe instructed, have it later on, but have it.
When you say a woman should have a kiddush, what, like a baby naming?
No, kiddush. If you didn't have it by the Sefer Torah, yes, then you have it by the Sefer Torah. But no, I'm talking about a kiddush. A kiddush in shul, sponsored kiddush, where people are making brachot for making l'chaims.
So is that something for your parnasa? Like if you don't do that, if you didn't have that,
it's tied into your shidduch. So your shidduch is your body to your soul, your you to your spouse, you and your mission in your life, your parnasah. Yeah, it's
That's
tied
what
into all
Yael
three.
was saying in the video, right? And then she met her husband.
Yeah.
so you're if you did as a baby girl, if you didn't have a kiddush,
You have it later on.
you have to have a kiddush.
You want a kiddush? Well, make a kiddush.
You might have a kiddush.
You should not make for sure. About mitzvah. It's different. That's different. But mitzvah is different. A kiddush is. That's altogether different. Kiddush is absolutely you have to have. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Huh?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So I need a kiddush, Rabbi.
Okay, let's set it up.
Like ASAP.
You get a kiddush, and you get a kiddush, and you get a kiddush, and you get a kiddush.
Do we know how long it took them to cross the sea? Does it say in the Torah how long
Yeah.
it took them?
Yeah.